to 4.5%, 5.5% per year. And you could do it without inflation. All of those skills are there. There's $7 trillion sitting unused in the banks, and nobody knows that better than the economists because you write about it all the time. There's 15 million Americans who are unemployed, underemployed, or out of the workforce but could be brought back into the workforce. There's a whole system of community colleges and vo-tech skills that can teach those people to be extremely relevant in high-tech industry or in the energy business if they want jobs, and if you pay enough, they'll take those jobs. And all the technology is there that we need. We just opened the first big cellulosic ethanol plant in Iowa earlier this month, 25 million gallons a year, cellulosic ethanol. Imagine, they said it couldn't be done. It can be done, and it'll be cheaper per gallon than gasoline. And no matter what the American Petroleum Institute tells you, cars can do pretty well on 15 or 20% ethanol.
So if we talk about,
you can do this.
So if we talk about energy, I guess there are two issues that come up time and time again. I mean, one is the suspicion of the new alternative technologies around getting gas and oil out of the ground. The other is obviously the question of climate change and is it real, and can there be any agreement around a price for carbon and so forth? I mean, what's your strategy for dealing with both of those issues?
Well, you've got to bring these two opposing forces together. So you've got to bring the science. One of the things about America that we all know but we don't like to talk about is we can do a lot of studies in this country, and generally, often the studies will show whatever the donor that pays for the studies wants it to show. It's very seldom that a think tank does a study that's paid for by, let's say, the American Petroleum Institute that says that oil is a very bad thing for the economy. And so we have to be careful on the scientific side and the study side. It's really a political issue. And, environmental groups, they need the Keystone Pipeline because they were dying without the Keystone Pipeline. It's energized millions of dollars of fundraising from environmental groups, and they need that kind of an issue. Somehow we have to rise above that as a country and bring the American Petroleum Institute, Growth Energy, which is the biofuels and ethanol advocacy group, and the environmental movement all together to do what's in the interest of the larger good of the country and deal with each of the issues that they bring up. We can produce more oil, and we can be more environmentally careful and protective of the environment in doing so. We can put in a carbon tax of $25 a ton, which we should do, and raise the price of gasoline about 20 cents a gallon. And you know what? It won't hurt the economy at all. It won't inhibit the oil industry one bit, but it will make America the global leader in dealing with climate change. And we need to do that. Now, these are things that each side can advocate and be proud of if they'll come together for the larger good. And it shouldn't take a war to bring this country together.
So we've got a few questions here from members of the audience. One is that you argue that the US needs a grand strategy. Maybe you'll talk a bit about that. But the question is, can you cite an example of a country that has one?
Well, I think China has a grand strategy, and I think Russia has a grand strategy. I'm not sure about Britain, but I mean, their grand strategy is basically, keep a foot in Europe and stay close to the United States and be the bridge. Our grand strategy has been pretty simple all these years, and since the end of World War II, we've recognized we fought 2 world wars in the 20th century to connect us to Europe. We could not tolerate the domination of Central and Western Europe by a hostile power. Took us a long time in World War I to come to that realization. We didn't want to come to that realization in World War II, but Japan helped us in that sense, because when they bombed, Hitler declared war, and we were in it. And we decided Europe first. That was a kind of fundamental reaffirmation of it, and it's no different today. The European Union's over 500 million people now. It's got a GDP that's the same size and maybe a little larger than that of the United States, despite the fact that it's not growing very fast. And it's the part of the world that most closely shares America's values and interests. So it's not a big leap in understanding grand strategy to say, stay close to Europe, keep them tied to the United States, and then support those around the world who share your values, and be a little bit humble, because they have to lead their own countries, use force only as a last resort, and use it multilaterally if possible, and in accordance with international law, and only as a last resort, unilaterally, if you must. I mean, that's the basic American grand strategy.
And what, in a nutshell, are the things that we're not doing with the economy that we should be doing?
Well, number one is we're not, Warren Buffett says that you invest in companies where the wind's in the sails, not necessarily the smartest, most articulate CEO, but a company that's in a sector that's growing. The sector that's growing and going great guns in America is energy, petroleum. Invest in it. We can do fracking, we can do gas to liquids, we can do coal to liquids, we can export natural gas, we can export crude. We're exporting 3 million plus barrels a day of refined products now. We put all the refineries in England out of business, as you probably know. And so, I mean, we can do all this. The economy's rip-roaring, ready to go. Let it happen. In fact, encourage it. So that's one thing we could do. We could relook some of the regulatory structures and give better incentives. You know, we need a sovereign wealth fund in the United States. Now, if you go to the state of Texas and you're, they say you have to be friends with Rick Perry to do this. I don't know if that's true or not, but if you bring an investment project to Texas, he has a fund that he can give you money to help get started. In Arkansas, we're building a steel plant, $1.3 billion steel plant, and a guy named John Corrini's building, a friend of mine. He's a good guy, proven executive, proven leader in the steel industry. We like him, and the governor says he's going to have a bond issue to support that steel plant. Well, that's a plan. States can have plans. Why can't America have a plan to push certain sectors? Seems like we're afraid to, or seems like, everybody says, no, that's interfering in the free market system.
But weren't you criticizing China for the same thing?
I'm not criticizing China for that at all.
I thought you mentioned 5-year plans with a suspicious look on your face.
I didn't have a suspicious look, sir. Now, perhaps you interpreted my Yankee naivete as suspicion, but I wouldn't want to be under a 5-year plan driven by the Chinese Communist Party. But I can't deny the effectiveness of the process. They achieved more than 3 decades of double-digit economic growth. And I know many of you have traveled to China.